We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Hey guys! I'm back and I bring to you the part 2 of What If Naruto Gained Unwanted Immortality. The fourth Shinobi War has ended with the sealing of Kaguya and the Juubi in Naruto. As the years pass and his unwanted immortality becomes clear, what will Naruto do when everyone he once fought for returns to dust as the world about him changes? Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 9, Battle of Farthendur. Chapter 9. As Naruto felt the Urgles come, he felt a familiar pull in his mind, his vision darkening before appearing before giant form covered in shadow. Brat! I thought I told you to wake me up when something interesting was going to happen. You were about to go massacre an army without me. I thought we were friends. Kurama roared, the wind from his breath almost enough to send the blonde flying. Sorry about that. I sort of forgot about you. Naruto instantly regretted his words as he felt a nostalgic, if terrifying feeling coming over his mind. The kid is finally going senile. Forgetting little old me, you know the giant fox with 10 tails that make mountains look tiny. No, of course not, you forgot. What should I do to make you remember? Maybe destroy your ramen bowls. No, that's too nice. Maybe finding a way to release Kaguya from the seal. Oh wait, maybe I should play the Ligai Genjutsu of Sunny Death. A dark chuckle echoed in Naruto's mind as Kurama searched for the option that would inflict the most pain on his container. If unease was what he felt at the mention of his precious ramen bowls, then full-blown horror blasted forth upon mention of the forbidden jutsu capable of turning even gay men straight. What battle? Fate of this continent. PHHT, those were nothing compared to even the slightest possibility of that abomination being unleashed unto the world. Oi, stop right there. Remember, if I see that genjutsu, you'll also see it. Naruto shouted, desperate to somehow placate the crazy Juubi from driving him insane and possibly ending the world. When he saw the fox only laugh harder in response to his blabbering, he rolled his eyes at his partner's antics. Alright, enough with the threats, you big furball. No need to pretend any further. I know you never found fighting weak opponents interesting, and from what I sensed, even an academy trainee could kick the ass out of 100 of them without breaking a sweat. The rumbling chuckles quickly died away as the 10-tailed fox shifted to a more comfortable position, a towering crimson iris trained on Naruto. Humph, you should have seen the look on your face. An amused puff of hot air slapped Naruto's face when Kurama saw his partner's brow twitch. Ignoring the blonde's heated protests, he rested his chin against a fist. You know, I'm surprised you're going through with all of this, brat. The old you would have never participated in such slaughter, not without at least trying to talk them out of it. Naruto plopped to the ground with a sigh. You know as well as I do my words will do nothing at this point. Especially if they're being mind-controlled by this, Durza. Powerful as he was no expert regarding the mind. Hell, combined with his potent chakra, he was more likely to pop their heads if he tried to free them. Now that was an idea. Just make sure to not lift your chakra seals. Kurama reminded Naruto, bringing him away from his thoughts. Remember, most of our chakra is being used to sustain your shadow clones and reinforce Kaguya's seal. I know. Don't worry, even with the seals in place, taking on an army like this won't require much effort. And should there be any unexpected surprises, lifting a seal for a minute or two shouldn't affect Kaguya much. Naruto assured, his voice calm and collected. To others, his words could be construed as arrogance to the extreme. But to someone like him, it was the simple truth. Kurama merely grunted in response before settling down onto his belly to watch the show. Withdrawing from the mental conversation, Naruto rolled his shoulders before digging his feet into the ground. Then, with a subtle crack, insignificant to the march of thousands, the ground splintered as the shinobi disappeared in a blur and towards his tunnel. As he approached the tunnel, Naruto ran through several hand seals, drew in a deep breath, and then let loose a wave of lava towards the entrance of the tunnel. Yotan. Yokai no Jutsu. Before the lava could completely solidify over the entrance, he leapt into the tunnel as the lava sealed off the entrance. Aragon turned toward Saphira, Murta, Auric, and Arya. Did I see that correctly? First he moved fast enough to disappear from view, cracked the ground with the very force of his movement, and sprayed some kind of lava from his mouth to seal off the entrance. Everyone just nodded dumbly. Well, Barzil, Arya had similar thoughts as well. He moved even faster than in our duel and can do spells that I have never heard of. Just who are you, Naruto? As Naruto landed inside of the tunnel, he looked behind him towards the sealed-off entrance. Well, now they won't be able to see my abilities. He did a few more hand seals and then breathed out a fine corrosive mist. Futon, Komu no Jutsu. Then without any hand seals, Naruto inhaled and then breathed out a gust of wind, Futon, de Tapa. Making the cloud of corrosive mist rush down the tunnel. As the first Urgles rounded a corner, they saw the silhouette of a single human behind a cloud of mist that was rushing towards them. But what enraged them was that the entrance behind the human blocked. With red eyes, they rushed towards the blonde, intent on ripping him into shreds. As the lead Urgles rushed into the mist, they suddenly felt unimaginable pain everywhere on their bodies. When they looked down at their bodies, they were horrified as they saw their skin melt and collect into puddles of flesh and blood on the floor. In but a few seconds of screaming, all that was left of the first Urgles were puddles of flesh, blood, bone, and steel. As the rest of the Urgles and Cole rushed around the same corner, they stopped, terrified at the sight of their melted comrades, as well as an ever slightly thinned cloud of mist. But soon they received mental orders from the shade to continue on, and ran into the mist with the same thing happening to them. It was only when 1,000 Urgles rushed into the tunnel that the mist finally dispersed, having fully been absorbed by the melted bodies of the Urgles. Well, that worked better than expected. Kekkei Genkai users truly were cheat sheets. Naruto thought to Kurama. Considering you're now able to use all Kekkei Genkai with more training, possibly create new Kekkei Genkai, and have the Rinne Sharingan that can use all of the abilities of previous Sharingans, I don't think you can complain about cheats. Kurama snorted. When he saw half of the corrosive mist disappear, Naruto touched a faint seal on his left hand, and with a flourish, pulled out a handle with intricate seals running down its length. Well, time to get physical. Aragon felt like hell. For the past hour, he had been killing Urgles and Cole non-stop on foot, on Saphira, with magic, by bow, and by sword. But for every single one killed, 2 came to replace him. It was only because of Naruto's earlier words that he was able to avoid breaking down both physically and mentally. As Aragon got into dangerous situations that he could not get out of by himself, Naruto's words once again came true as Saphira, Hrothgar, and Murtaugh came to help him out even at great cost to themselves. It made Aragon really realize that under Naruto's sunny exterior, was a veteran warrior to the bone. Now as Aragon looked down at the battle from the back of Saphira, he observed that the Urgles and Cole were streaming out of 2 of the 3 tunnels and were fighting the armies led by Ajihad and Hrothgar. However, the third sealed entrance remained sealed and strangely silent. Whatever he's doing, it's pretty damn effective. Suddenly a consciousness not his own or Saphira's entered his mind. There are loud noises under Trondheim. It sounds like the Urgles are trying to dig into the city. Aragon quickly spotted Arya among a mass of Urgles and Cole. He and Saphira flew down from above and quickly cleared the area while Aragon shouted, "Get on!" As Arya swept her sword in a circle to kill the Urgles around her and gracefully leapt onto Saphira and behind Aragon. Just as Saphira was about to take off, a Cole rushed in with an upraised axe and smashed into her chest. With a roar of pain, Saphira still managed to take off from the ground, but not before Arya shot out a green ball of energy that passed through the Cole, killing it instantly. "Are you alright?" Aragon asked in concern, feeling the pain and shock of Saphira through their bond. "I'll live," she said grimly, "but the front of my armor has been crushed together. It hurts my chest, and I'm having trouble moving." Aragon notified Arya of Saphira's condition and flew up to the dragonhold. When the Urgles and Cole found that the mist had dispersed and that the source of the pain and death of 1,000 of their comrades was just standing there with only a handle in his hand, they charged with swords and axes raised, intent on destroying the human responsible for annihilating a quarter of their numbers. As the first Cole of the group swung his sword down at the blonde, he suddenly saw a flash of yellow light and then darkness as his head fell from his shoulders. The last thing that Cole heard in his fading conscience was, "Raijin no Ken." The rest of the Urgles and Cole ignored their comrade's death to all slash at the offending blonde. With a speed that would have put an elf's to shame and possibly tear apart a regular human's body, Naruto weaved through all of the weapons flying at him while slashing and stabbing through bodies and armor like butter. Yes, keep going. Destroy them. Push your body to the limit and beyond. There is no greater joy than improving your body while massacring your enemies. The giant fox in his gut said. In a battle, there is yelling, there is screaming, but to the Urgles in the back, there was no such sound the moment Naruto pulled out the Raijin no Ken. As they started to snarl in annoyance at the hold-up, they froze when saw the Urgles and Cult in front of them simply fall apart with a flash of yellow light. Even without the Hiraishin no Jutsu and limited by 30x resistance seals, Naruto was moving at a speed faster than they could process. And in that time that they took to process that something was moving too fast for them to even see while slaughtering their comrades, they died. By the end of the hour, where there was once an army that could have easily taken a minor city in the empire, there was only reddish-black puddles and burnt slices of Urgles and Kull that littered the ground. Phew, that was slightly tiring, especially when my body is limited like this. Still, that wasn't much of a challenge. Naruto said to no one in particular. Well, that was to be expected. After all, even with all of the limitations, you are still the god of the shinobi world. There was no way these ugly humans could have possibly challenged you enough to try hard. Even then, I can sense that your body has slightly improved. Your chakra pathways have already ever so slightly increased in size and your muscle fiber and bone density have also increased by a small amount. You could probably take a hit from your pink-haired teammate and not move at all. Kurama summarized. Well. Naruto started before feeling a tug towards a single point in space. Somebody threw the Hiraishin kunai that I gave them. Well, let's go. Naruto thought as he allowed himself to be pulled towards the marker. Aragon knelt on the ground as Durza slowly invaded his mind. What was I thinking? I should have waited Arya, Saphira, Murta, or Naruto. Wait, Naruto. Aragon thought as he yanked the tri-pronged kwani from his belt and thought back to Naruto's words. While not expecting much, he threw the kunai if only to buy another second for anybody to show up and help. As Durza was about to slice down through the thrown kunai and rend Aragon's back from shoulder to hip, a yellow flash blinded both of them as Naruto suddenly appeared a foot above the thrown kunai. Futon, Rasengan. Naruto yelled out as he shoved a stormy gray spiraling sphere of pure wind chakra that he completed in his Kamui dimension before the battle into end, through the shade sword while immobilizing Durza due to the sudden turbulence from the exploding sphere. Breezing. Aragon yelled out as he took advantage of the opening, lunged forward with the first spell he ever used and with heatless, flickering flames blazing down Zarok's length, and stabbed Durza through the heart. As Durza roared out to the ceiling, his face ran through a series of emotions, disbelief, pain, anger, burning rage, and finally despair as his skin turned transparent. Instead of red flesh and white bone, pure darkness violent swirled as it broke through the skin and into three entities that tried to invade their killer's mind. Oh no you don't. You're not taking the kid from me. Ninjendo. Naruto yelled out as he ripped the three entities away from Aragon and sent them to the King of Hell. Hey Aragon, you alright? Whoa, hold on, I got you, Naruto started, only to pause, having to catch Aragon from falling to the ground from exhaustion. Surrounding them, the Urgles slowly came to terms of what happened and charged with murderous roars towards the duo. Though freed from the Shade's dark influence, remnants of his control continued to linger. As Aragon panted, struggling to draw breath, Naruto stood there without flinching and just watched the Urgles come at them. Unconcerned about the charging Urgles, Naruto remarked cheekily and raised a hand, well done, maybe next time you can do this without me. Too tired to respond to the blonde's teasing, Aragon was getting nervous. Completely drained, both physically and magically, he could barely even move a finger. He assumed Naruto was the same. If anything, the blonde should be more tired considering he just fought half of the Urgle army by his lonesome. When Naruto didn't move, Aragon desperately tried to call up any scrap of energy left in him. Then he heard him whisper, "Relax, Aragon. It'll all be over in a second." Helpless to do anything else, Aragon decided to put his trust in the foreigner. He only hoped whatever Naruto had planned, it would be enough to instantly kill 20 Kull. Otherwise, they were in for a very painful death via club and sword. He wasn't disappointed. Shinra Tensei. A nearly invisible shockwave, made only discernible by dislodged dirt, erupted from Naruto's hand and expanded, sweeping the Kull away from the two. Flesh was torn, bones were crushed, and weapons were shattered as pure gravitational force rendered anything less solid than stone into little more than jelly. When the dust settled, almost nothing was left of the enemy other than smears against the cracked walls. As Aragon stared in disbelief, only managing to turn his head enough to see an almost blinding cheeky grin. So, not only can you spit lava, breathe fire capable of melting stone, and move so fast you appear in a yellow flash, you can also slam everyone around you while pulverizing them to bits. Aragon paused to breathe, his lungs struggling to provide the necessary oxygen to remain conscious. Did I miss anything? Naruto shrugged. No, you pretty much got everything. However, I have to correct you, the Hiraishin is teleportation, not high-speed movement. That's Shunshin. Aragon nodded right along. Right, teleportation, of course. Wait a second, teleportation. Eyes bulging, his poor battle-weary mind finally gave in. With a small gasp, the dragon rider's vision darkened as slumped towards the ground. Yup. Naruto snorted in amusement before tossing Aragon over his shoulder, all the while slipping the Hiraishin Kwani back into the boy's belt. Chapter 10, The Reveal. Chapter 10. Naruto stood silently in Ajihad's study while surrounded by Aragon, Arya, Hrothgar, and Ajihad. As he looked back at the others that were staring at him, he wondered how this came to be. Flashback. At the end of the battle, when the Urgals started to desperately retreat, Ajihad ordered the uncovering of the lava-sealed entrance. When the entrance was finally unsealed, the leader of the Varden walked in with a heavy heart, fully expecting to see a corpse with blonde hair and dead blue eyes. Instead, he saw a horrifying sight that he in his long career of fighting had never seen before. What happened here? What are those puddles? Are they Urgals? And what are those burned cut marks? Just what kind of weapon or spell could have done this? Ajihad wondered. But where is he? There must be over 1,000 corpses here, and that's just the intact ones that I can see. He thought as a dwarf ran over and nearly vomited at the sight. Sir, Aragon and Naruto have killed Durza the Shade. I see. So that's why the Urgals started to retreat. Naruto did say that the minds of the Urgals were strangely connected and to one common source that was dark. But still, just who is this guy that could know so much information and kill an entire army? Ajihad thought. You, get Aragon, Arya, Hrothgar and Naruto to my study. Now. The leader of the Varden commanded. Yes sir. The dwarf said as he ran off. Flashback end. Naruto, first, I want to thank you on behalf of the Varden for your acts of valor. Had you not occupied a tunnel, the losses the Varden would have faced would have been catastrophic. We would have lost at least half of our men and dwarves in this single encounter, which would have led to increased tensions between us and the dwarves. I also want to thank you for saving Aragon and help killing Durza the Shade. It had been one of my greatest regrets not killing the scourge that caused so much suffering. However, as the leader of the Varden, I cannot allow some things be unknown to me. I think it is about time you explain to us who exactly are you. Ajihad said with a steely tone as his hand drifted down towards his sword. Naruto looked across the room and saw the same question in each of their eyes. Kurama, I don't think we can stay with the Varden if we don't give some information now. That or they would never trust me enough to truly help them. While I could just cast a genjutsu on them with my eyes, it would be wrong and be against everything I am. Naruto sighed in his mind. Well kid, then I suggest giving the information they want. However, if you're going to do what you're going to do, try to keep the later end of your life in the elemental nations mostly a secret. They don't have to know your current level of power. If they did, they would either fear you and try to end you or worship the ground you walk on, which I know is not something you will ever want. Kurama advised. Naruto nodded as he looked at each of them. Ajihad, Aragon, Arya, King Hrothgar, I understand your concerns. As a former leader of my village, I would never let such a powerful unknown stay where I am responsible for so many lives. As such, rather than tell you who I am, let me show you. Suddenly, he intensely peered at them, staring at each of them as he discerned from their auras how trustworthy they were. However, before I do so, promise nothing leaves this room unless I allow it. While Aragon, Ajihad, and Hrothgar communicated with their eyes, Arya hesitated for a second before gracefully nodding her agreement. Soon they too agreed with the condition. Upon seeing how their auras and words matched, the former Hokages closed his eyes before opening them once again, causing them all to instinctively shiver at the sight of the Rinne Sharingan. He warned them, "Now brace yourselves, this will be disorienting." Tsukuyomi. Everyone in the room experienced a brief moment of spinning darkness until they landed in a red landscape with red skies and a single bright white moon in the sky. As Ajihad and Hrothgar moved to grab their weapons, Arya and Aragon remained calm until they saw Naruto emerge in front of them. "Welcome to my Tsukuyomi, where I rule over time and space, where I am god of this space," Naruto said. "Worry not, Ajihad and King Hrothgar, what you see is all merely an illusion that only I can break, or a person with extraordinary will can break. I will be using this space to show parts of my past. Then you can see for yourself just who I am," Naruto said as he conjured the first memory. Instantly, the five of them appeared in the sky while looking over a village glistening in the sun while surrounded by an enormous forest of green trees. "This is Konohagakure no Sato, or in your tongue, the village hidden in the leaves, the place where I was born," Naruto said as everyone just looked strangely at him. "Don't give me those looks. I didn't pick the name. Besides, what kind of name is the Empire? So unoriginal," Naruto muttered. The audience chuckled as Naruto continued. In addition to Konoha, there were 4 other hidden villages, Iwagakure, Kumogakure, Kirigakure, and Sunagakure. Images flashed by as each village was shown. Each of these villages were ruled by a Kage who governed the village through a dictatorship with a military force called the Shinobi, which is what I am. These shinobi were different compared to regular people in that they could use an energy called chakra, which is sort of like the magic used in this land. Soon, scenes of shinobi performing various jutsus were shown to them, which elicited murmurs of awe as various elements were bent to their will. "Would it be possible for you to teach others these jutsus?" Ajihad almost immediately questioned after seeing the great potential these jutsus could bring to the war. "From what I have seen so far in Allegezia, the answer would be no. While the energy used to power both magic and jutsus seems similar, the way it's used is almost completely different, making it almost impossible for the inhabitants of Allegezia to utilize chakra we do," Naruto replied and thought, "While it's definitely impossible regular spellcasters to use jutsus, it's different for Aragon and, from what I've seen, the elves. They seem to have enough chakra in their system to use them. However, Ajihad doesn't need to know this. I would be damned if I made the same mistake as Hagoromo Ji-san and introduce a new era of warfare, except this time the cause of it being me." As the leader of the Varden frowned before dismissing the option. Seeing that there were no more questions, Naruto soon brought up a picture of himself when he was a child. "When I was born, the villages were mostly at peace with one another, which could be considered fortunate as previously 3 great shinobi wars were fought, with the last being only a few years prior to my birth. However, there were still skirmishes between the borders of the various villages, as well as bandits that plagued the road, so shinobi were very much in demand." More scenes flashed by until Naruto stopped at one that showed when he got his forehead protector engraved with the symbol of the leaf. "In my land, we were sent to the academy where we were trained, starting at 8 years old, and then graduating at around 12 to 13 years old. From there, we were sent on missions until we accumulated enough experience and reached a certain level of strength to be promoted through the ranks." "Wait, did you say that you started training at 8 years old to kill other people? How could the adults force their children to do so?" "That's just barba," Aragon would have continued if Naruto hadn't started to glare at him. But he did, and eventually Aragon took the hint to stop talking. "Aragon, my society was a heavily militarized one. It was our way of life to do everything for the village, whether it be killing our enemies, protecting the civilians, or even dying to protect the village. Even if you do not understand us, do not disrespect how we lived, because it is an insult to those who have given their very lives, many of them being my friends, for the village." Naruto briskly answered as Aragon thought about what he said. For a moment, nobody said anything until he coughed and started to show selected scenes of the war against Madara and Kaguya. "Anyways, things were relatively peaceful through my childhood until a madman decided that he wanted to control the world, and initiated the 4th Shinobi War. It was in this war where I became a war hero and according to others, single-handedly ended the war, which in my opinion is a complete overstatement as I had plenty of help from my comrades. After that I became the Nanadame, or the 7th, Hokage of Konoha." The trio looked at Naruto in surprise. Although they knew he was powerful, they never imagined that he was somebody that could end a war between people. No, shinobi, that from their point of view, could literally conquer Allegezia without much resistance, except possibly from the elves. Even then, I'm not sure we could stop them. From what I've seen and felt, we would probably be overrun by the end of a week. Still, although he talked about where he came from and his people, he didn't really talk about himself other than the fact he ended a major war and became the Hokage of his village. I'll have to ask more later, and it would give me a chance to get close to him. Arya thought as Ajihad and Aragon came to their own opinions. This Naruto is somebody who is immensely powerful and could be a worse threat than Galbatorix ever could. But at the same time, he seems sympathetic to our cause. If we have him on our side, he could be the deciding factor of this war, along with Aragon and Saphira. For now, let's try not to antagonize him. The leader of the Varden weighed his options as he decided that it would be best to have Naruto as a friend rather than a foe. As for Aragon, he was stunned at the origins of his friend, but after getting over the fact that children were trained to become killers, he realized that Naruto really was similar to him. If we ignore that he seems to be overly powerful, I could say we share many similarities. We were both ordinary people, at first, until certain events pushed us towards early maturity. In his homeland, he was viewed as the hope to end his war, while I am similarly viewed as the one to end Galbatorix's reign. If he really is the same type of person as I am, I don't think I have anything to worry about, but just in case, I'll keep an eye out on him. And that's basically who I am and where I came from. Several seconds of silence ticked by until Naruto slapped his head. Oh, how could I forget? I also came from the elemental nations, which is across your western sea. All they could do was look on as the man declared he was the first in 300 years to come from the other side of the sea. Chapter 11, Acceptance. Chapter 11. While the group of four stared at him, Naruto remained silent, his eyes once again their usual blue. If it were up to him, he would never have revealed his origins. But considering what he showed and them being in a state of war, it would be foolish of them to simply accept him as an ally without giving them something. Still, from what he knew of the current situation, they were sorely lacking in allies capable of standing against Galbatorix. As he waited, Ajihad eventually turned his head towards him. Naruto, thank you for telling us more about yourself. However, I must know, can other shinobi come from across the sea? Because if yes, after taking down Galbatorix, certain measures have to be taken. And if they do come, who will you stand with? Naruto nodded at the question, finding it completely logical to worry about a powerful outside force potentially invading their home, all the while having a potential threat literally in that said home. Rubbing his chin, he thought for a couple of seconds before replying. From what I know, other shinobi could possibly come from across the sea. Naruto waved his hands to calm the alarmed rebel leader. However, it took me a solid 2 months by boat, and even then the only reason I survived was because of how powerful I am. In addition, even if somebody was able to land here, he or she would never be able to go back because there is a natural barrier that only lets people go out, but never back in. So you don't have anything to worry about from the elemental nations. While he twisted some of his words, it had the intended effect as Ajihad relaxed when he heard that there was nothing to worry about from the other side of the sea. But soon, he narrowed his eyes. However, I could sense that you left out much of your memories, especially when you were the Hokage. I just hope that you are still the war hero that in turn saved many lives. Ajihad turned around to leave the study and hunt the remaining Urgles and disappearing from view. Hrothgar left the study as soon as Ajihad did, but before leaving turned around to look at Naruto once more with an approving look in his eyes. Aragon stood in front of Naruto looking at the floor before raising his head and looked directly in Naruto's eyes. Naruto, from what I've seen, I see that we are actually quite similar. From what I could tell from the images you showed us, you were an orphan who then became the hope of your people that ended your war, while I was a mere farm boy who then became a dragon rider who people think will overthrow Galbatorix. But just how am I supposed to that? Everyone seems to think that just because I'm a dragon rider that all I have to do is say a word and Galbatorix would come crumbling down. Aragon's shoulders slumped as started to question the immensity of his task. Aragon, what you said before is true, we are very similar, both in circumstance and from what I see, personality too. So if you are anything like me, you are currently thinking that the whole world is on your shoulders, right? Naruto chuckled as he received a confused nod from the young rider. Just remember, you are not alone in this fight, you never were. While you might be the key to ending Galbatorix's rule, you will have allies and comrades who will stand by your side to whatever end. And now with me here, while I will not interfere in your destiny, I will make sure that you succeed and become who you always wanted to be. The blonde patted Aragon's shoulders as he smiled in encouragement as the younger man smiled in return. Thank you Naruto for the advice. After facing Durza and almost dying, I had thought that I was a failure of a writer, needing to be saved while being able to do anything by myself. But now I know better. One man, even with his dragon, will not be able to single-handedly change the course of this kind of war, unless they're like you. And thanks for being my friend. Aragon smiled as he turned around to leave the study to Saphira. Naruto smiled as he watched Aragon leave the room. Aragon, you and Saphira remind me so much of me when I was young, and just like Kakashi-sensei and Jiraiya-sensei did for me, I will teach you what I can, shield you from what I should, and be there when you need me. Naruto thought as he started to leave the room. Wait. Came, or rather rang out a clear voice from behind him as Naruto belatedly realized that he was not alone in the room still. Yes? Naruto asked. Naruto. First, I want you to know that I am sorry for not trusting you earlier even when you played a hand in my rescue to the Varden. As Naruto started to wave his hand to stop her, Arya started speaking again while lifting a finger to silence the blonde. Stop, let me finish. You should know that when you first drew us into your Tsukuyomi on the training field, as much as it shames me to say this, I was afraid. Know that I did not fear for my life, but because I thought that I had failed in protecting Aragon from an attack. But most of all, I felt ashamed in how easily I was drawn into your mind despite the mental barriers I still had up. What you might not know is that us elves as a race are not only far stronger physically than humans, but we are also far superior in magic to humans, hence leading towards us having near unbreakable mental barriers. Not even Durza the Shade was able to break me despite trying to do so for months. Arya said as she drew in more breath to speak. You have no idea how ashamed I was when, in my eyes, a mere human broke past my barriers and then proceeded to show me up in a physical fight, despite fighting like a barbarian. Although I now understand how you were able to after seeing what you showed us. Arya smirked as she saw Naruto pout. In his defense he wasn't trying his hardest, especially when he wasn't forced hard enough to reveal more of his cards. Lastly, I wanted you to know this. Towards the end of your memories, I realized that you look almost exactly the same, as you did before when you were Hokage. And from what I gathered, you looked as if you were in your late 20s, but then I know you would never abandon your village just to come overseas. Not when you have so much life to give to your village. So I have to ask, how old are you really? Arya asked. Although there were more questions that she wanted to ask including how powerful he was, they weren't appropriate until they got to know each other better. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the question, surprised that of all questions, it was his age that got the elf curious. When I ended the 4th Shinobi War, I was 17 and when I became Hokage I was 28. However, by then I had stopped aging, even until now at 100 years old. Why do you ask? I was curious because the way you carry yourself is not the way a young or even middle-aged human would. I would know with my century worth of experience of being among the other races of Allegezia. Naruto's eyes widened when he learned that the beautiful woman in front of him was of similar age to him, so you should know that us elves are too immortal. From what you showed us, you are a unique case as the other shinobi in the images all seem to age. Because of this, I can only imagine how much pain you have gone through as you watched the people you cared about fade away one at a time. So remember, you are not alone in this world, Naruto. When others fade away in time, know that you will forever have someone to turn to in me. Arya said before turning to quickly walk away from the study. Well, that went better than I thought. Naruto sighed. That would be a terrible understatement, brat. Almost all humans, or two legs in this case, when confronted with a powerful force beyond their control, they either try to befriend it with vile intentions or try to destroy it. I'll have you know that the latter usually happens. Kurama retorted. Well, even if the world turns on me, at least I will have you forever, furball. And no, I'm not proposing, stop using that joke, it's so bad. TCH, it's funny and you know it. 3 days later. In the middle of a room on one of the upper levels of Trondheim sat Naruto, eyes closed as he meditated, something he was prone to do when there wasn't anything happening. As Naruto was about to get to training this, he suddenly felt a pull towards a Hiraishin kunai. Who did this? The battle is already won, just what kind of situation would do this? Naruto thought as he followed the signal and teleported towards the throne marker. Murtaugh slashed upwards with his sword as he sliced the throat of an Urgal as another one attempted to bisect him. As he parried the blow, he noticed an unnoticed Urgal that was stabbing towards Ajihad, leader of the Varden, from behind. As he cut the Urgal in front of him from top to bottom, he threw the knife at his side, intent on killing the Urgal behind Ajihad. What he forgot was that the knife was the kunai Naruto gave to him. In a flash of yellow that startled those present, Naruto appeared and instantly took in the situation. As the Urgal kept on its stabbing motion, Naruto just gripped the offending arm and tore it away from its owner's body. He then jumped high and then threw several shuriken while muttering, "Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." Instantly the thrown shuriken multiplied until hundreds flew out to impale all of the attacking Urgals. As the last Urgal fell, Naruto immediately dispersed the jutsu and resealed the thrown shuriken. However, before asking how Ajihad was, Naruto stretched out his hands and said Bansho Tenin towards the twins, grabbed each one by the throat, then shoved them towards the ground hard enough to knock them out. Just as Ajihad recovered from his shock, Aragon, Saphira, Arya, and Auric arrived. "Naruto, why did you do that? While I trust that you did for a reason, I still need a good reason for you incapacitating two of our most powerful spellcasters." Ajihad frowned at the blonde. "Ajihad, this is another one of my abilities. I can feel negative emotions and if I focus enough, I can see where they are coming from. And if I really try, I can differentiate which feelings they are feeling. These two were feeling rage, malice, and hatred towards you and me just as I saved you," Naruto replied. After a stunned silence, Arya walked up to the twins, grabbed their heads and started to break through their mental barriers. As she did so, she saw the plot of killing Ajihad and retrieving Murtaugh alive. But when she tried to trace the origin of the orders, she could not see anything past the fact that it came from someone in the Empire no matter how hard she ravaged their minds. Naruto is right. They were traitors that tried to have you killed and Murtaugh taken alive while under the guise of an Urgal attack. However, I could not find out who did this other than that it was from the Empire," Arya said with disgust as she dropped the now vegetative twins. "I see. Thank you Naruto. I'm guessing the abilities that you used are related to what we saw in your memories?" Ajihad asked. "Correct. Like I said before, we shinobi use an energy source called chakra. Unlike magic however, there is no real need to say anything. If anything, it is mostly a habit that we form while training the skill. Before you ask, you do not have to worry about someone else having similar skills. I know for a fact that the only chakra user in these lands due to a good friend of mine," Naruto said as he thought of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, but not before glancing at Arya before looking away. Only Arya caught the gesture as she narrowed her eyes in suspicion. "Well, once again, thank you for saving Murtaugh and me. From this, I now know for a fact that Murtaugh is indeed not Morzan. Murtaugh, I am sorry for pinning the crimes of your father on you. It was dishonorable of me by doing so." Ajihad apologized as he nodded towards Murtaugh. The man in question merely nodded back although they could all see that a heavy burden seemed to have lifted from his shoulders. "Naruto, Arya, Aragon, Saphira, and Auric. Prepare to leave for Du Weldenvarden. The Queen of the Elves, Islanzadi Drottning, has caught news of you being alive and well Arya and has demanded that you and the Aragon leave immediately to further Aragon's training. You will leave in a week. Murtaugh, I know that you would like to accompany Aragon, but it would be unwise for you to step into their forest. They still blame the Forsworn for much of their deaths and the elves are neither forgetful nor forgiving. Auric, you will leave with them as a representative of the dwarven people. Hrothgar has already approved of you leaving," Ajihad commanded as he turned and left towards his study in Trondheim. "Well Aragon, Saphira, Arya, and Auric, it seems like we're finally going to Elesmera. Jai-ani," Naruto said as he shunshin towards his quarters. Chapter 12, Resurrection. Chapter 12. 1 week later, Naruto looked at the surrounding mountains and forests as he waited for the rest of his party to arrive, Arya, Aragon, and Auric. "Kurama, we're about to head towards the home of the elves. If I remember correctly, Hagoromo Ji-san told us that a group of people left the elemental nations around 1,000 years ago just as Kaguya was first sealed. From what I heard, the elves arrived in Alagizia around 3,000 years ago which agrees with the approximately 3x time displacement. I have not mentioned the fact before but in Arya, there is a thin chakra pathway that is still active but is actually leaking chakra into the surrounding flesh and bones. with the greatest concentration of chakra being in their minds. I suspect this is why the elves are so much stronger than humans, both physically and mentally. Even in Aragon, he too has a chakra pathway, except this pathway is even thinner than Arya's, and for some reason concentrated in his mind and in his palm with the silver circle. So it would seem that dragon riders received chakra pathways from their dragons, because so far all of the regular humans have absolutely no chakra. Interesting, it would seem that the first people who left the elemental nations had chakra, but had no knowledge of how to use it. So these elves either already spoke this ancient language or were introduced to it when they arrived on this land. Either way, when we get to their forest, you should attempt to learn how to use this magic if only to learn what it can do. Now unless there's something interesting, like a large battle or massacre, occurring, don't wake me up. Kurama said as he started to snore. Aragon flew with Saphira to where they were supposed to meet before leaving for Du Weldenvarden. He thought about what occurred this past week, the discussion about Naruto with Saphira, the dwarf feast with a drunk Saphira, the invitation to the Dr. Vrangregata by Triana the sorceress that Saphira drove away, and finally the decision to move the Varden to Sirta. Saphira, we're finally going to the forest of the elves to further our training. Just what do you think will happen? What if we are not accepted by them? Little one, most likely you will learn more about the ancient language and its complexities. They will probably also sharpen your swordsmanship to your limits. If the elves are anything like Arya, I do not think we will have to worry about them accepting us. If they do not, then we will show them what exactly a dragon rider and his dragon can do when desperate. But also remember, you will have Naruto at your side, and if half of the things you showed me is true, then we will have nothing worry about. From his memories, it is obvious how much he cares for his precious ones to the point of sacrificing his own body and reputation. I guess so, but where are the others? Aragon questioned as they landed until he felt a tap on his shoulder. Yo! Naruto said as the pair almost attacked him until they saw who it was. Naruto, why do you keep doing this? Aragon shouted while Saphira merely mused on how exactly did the blonde stand on her without her noticing. Because it's fun and you're so easy to tease. Naruto cheekily replied as the pair just face-faulted while crying anime tears. One day, we'll get you. Both the dragon rider and dragon thought. Oh, there's Arya and Auric. But why are they on those horse things? Naruto mused. I wonder, maybe it's to get us to Elesmera in a short amount of time. Aragon said sarcastically as Arya and Auric joined them. Can't Saphira just carry us all there? Surely flying is faster than just riding on a horse. That is true, if she could carry us all at once. Aragon replied. I see, is that the only thing preventing her from flying us all there? Nothing like only allowing her rider on her back or anything. Naruto said while looking at Saphira. After Saphira gave Aragon a certain look, he replied, if she could carry us all there, she would. I believe she is just as impatient as all of us to get there. Alright then. Everyone, get on top of Saphira. I'll make us lighter so that Saphira will be able to fly us all there. Naruto said as everyone but Auric nodded and climbed on top of the dragon. You sure about this, human? While it would be an honor to fly on Saphira, I don't want to drop from the sky merely because you could not keep us up. Besides, I like having my feet on the ground. Auric said suspiciously. I see your point. You don't trust me and you don't know my powers. That is understandable. But know that Ajihad and your king seems to trust me. As for your liking to have your feet on the ground, I can do something about that, but you must promise to never speak about this unless I permit it. Naruto said seriously while looking into Auric's and everyone's eyes. After several moments of Auric's hesitation, everyone nodded. Very good. Once I do my spell, you will see some surprising things. Do not worry, it is only another one of my techniques. Now, look into my eyes. Kamui. Naruto said as Auric swirled away from existence. What was that? Where did he go? Arya and Aragon asked, although with less concern than curiosity. That is one of my jutsus, Kamui. With it, I can transport items and people into my own personal dimension. Naruto said. Within it, I can perform to a lesser extent time manipulation in that dimension to the extent of slowing down time in that dimension up to 20x. So by the time we stop for the night, he would feel it was only an hour at most. Naruto said, while hiding the other abilities that Kamui afforded him. Amazing. To think you could store living beings and transport them around with no one knowing. But the amount of energy to forcibly rip apart space and then maintain the inside to allow others to survive, must be beyond huge. Arya sighed. Alright, enough about me. Let's get going. Now Saphira, this may feel a little weird, but trust me on this. Doton, Kijigen no Jutsu. Naruto said while flashing through several hand signs and slapping his hand on Saphira's back. Immediately, Saphira felt lighter than she has ever been, even when she only carried Aragon. What did you do, Naruto? Saphira is currently more excited than I saw her in a while. I merely lightened the gravity of Saphira and our surroundings. With this, she should not feel any strain while flying us there. If anything, she should go even faster than when she was only carrying you. Naruto replied before lying down on Saphira's back to take a nap. Arya and Aragon just stared at the blonde snoring away as they wondered while flying towards their destination, just how is he not slipping? When night fell, Saphira landed in a clearing while Arya, Aragon and Naruto dismounted to set up camp. Before doing so, Naruto brought Auric back into existence and watched as the dwarf landed on his ass and looked around wildly. What did you do? Why were there thousands of you? What was that landscape? Why is it dark? Auric asked as he fired off questions. First, that was my personal dimension you were in. There were thousands of me because as they train, their memories become my memories. Hence I don't need to personally train in certain areas. That landscape is just what my personal dimension looks like. I'm not sure why that is so, but I have my suspicions. As for the last question, it has been nearly a whole day already. Time passes 20x slower in my dimension Auric, which is why it is already nighttime. Naruto answered as he walked away to set up his place to sleep. Later on around a fire they created, Naruto asked Aragon about his journey, except this time in greater detail about Brahm and his death by the Arazak than what Aragon told Ajihad back in his study. Aragon, did you love him? Naruto suddenly asked. Yes, of course, like a father. Aragon answered confusedly, wondering why the blonde was asking. Were you able to tell him that? Naruto asked softly as the others looked at them. No. Aragon whispered as he looked away. Do you regret it? Not being able to tell him so? Naruto asked with an odd look in his eyes. Of course I regret it. It is one of my greatest regrets, not being able to tell my father figure that I loved him, that I'm sorry for causing his death, that I'm sorry for not being powerful enough to protect him. Why are you asking this? Why are you picking at my wounds? Aragon flared back at the blonde in anger and pain. Naruto paused a moment before sighing, with his shoulders squared as if he made an important decision. Brat, you sure about this? This could easily set the others away from you once you do this. Kurama asked worriedly. I am sure about this, Kurama. After first hearing his story in Ajihad's study, I've been thinking about this the whole time. Look at him, Kurama. Doesn't he remind you of me? If you encountered so similar to you in a similar situation, you too would do everything you could to help guide him back to the right path. Naruto sighed in his thoughts. Alright, I see where you are coming from, so I won't interfere. But be prepared for what happens to you after you do this, even if it's only temporary. Kurama said as he went back to sleep. Aragon, if you could see him one last time, would you take it even if it only lasts a few minutes? The area immediately quieted as 4 pairs of eyes stared at him. In their minds they thought back to his amazing feats, annihilating hundreds of Urgals, destroying a 4,000-man army, instantly teleporting, having a personal dimension, and manipulating gravity for hours on end. But speaking to the dead. This was something else entirely. This was one of the forbidden things in magic, to never raise or contact the deceased, and that none have ever succeeded in doing so. Aragon, you remind me so much of myself. You've seen my memories. You saw what I had to endure, what I had to give up and accept. You've also seen the importance of closure. I can see within your eyes that flicker of hatred against yourself for not being powerful enough. I have seen the end results of such a path, and I will not allow you to walk it. Now tell me, Aragon. Will you see him, one last time? Naruto said as his voice grew stronger and stronger with each word. Little one. No one knows more than me about how much pain you have been in regarding Brahm. Despite you saying that you were over it, I know that you have not, and probably never will never forgive yourself. If you can be spared from such pain, then take this chance that he is offering. Do it, or you will forever regret it. Saphira said in their mental link as Aragon hesitated. After a moment of silence, Aragon simply said, do it. Naruto closed his eyes as he switched his eyes to the Rinne Sharingan. So be it. Naruto created a shadow clone of himself, making the others twitch in surprise as he ordered the clone to lie down on his back. Step back, close your eyes, and be ready to speak. I will only hold him here for 10 minutes, for those long dead have no place in the world of the living. Geto, Rinne Tensei no Jutsu. Suddenly, a demon-like head with circular banded eyes and purple flames surrounding it emerged from the ground, causing the others to shiver from its mere presence. A moment later, a blue light shining light emerged from its mouth and into the clone. After that, the head descended back into the ground, although not before Naruto dropped to the ground, panting with sweat running down his forehead. Upon hearing the blonde dropping to the ground, they immediately opened their eyes and ran to help Naruto up. As they did, they witnessed the clone changing shape into a figure so familiar to Aragon and Saphira. Finally, it morphed into the figure Braum, complete with the clothing he dyed in and a silver circle on his palm. After a moment, he opened his eyes. Aragon, why are you here? Are you dead? No, this is the land of the living, what have you done, you fool? Braum roared at Aragon after taking in his surroundings, concerned that the boy had used his life just to bring him back. Braum, wait. It was not me that brought you back, it was Naruto, the one behind you. And he said we only have 10 minutes to talk before you have to go back to the land of the dead. Aragon responded as Braum relaxed, knowing that Aragon wouldn't die for doing this. I see, well hurry up, we don't have much time. Speak. Braum said in an irate manner, although all that could be seen in his eyes were concern and confusion. Braum, father, I wanted to call you that for so long. Aragon begun as Braum widened his eyes. I wanted to say that I'm sorry for getting you killed. If I was only strong enough, you wouldn't have needed to take the knife to save me. I'm sorry for not being powerful to heal you. I'm sorry for not fully appreciating what you have given me until you were gone. I'm sorry for being a burden. And I'm most sorry for never telling you that I love you as much as a son would a father. Aragon said as he nearly shouted towards the end with tears running down his cheeks. Braum softened, finally understanding why Aragon called him here. Aragon, you were never a burden, except well, in the beginning. Aragon, you did not get me killed, there was simply nothing that could have been done. If I had not jumped in front of you, the Arazak would have made sure to kill me anyways before escaping. And Aragon, everyone is weak in the beginning, including the elves. And know that stronger people than you could not have saved me from my wounds. Braum softly said as his form started to flicker and thin. Ah, it would seem my time is nearly up. It is good to see you too, Saphira. My, you have gotten big, just like my Saphira. Continue guarding him, as he will forever guard you. And know this, Aragon, I too considered you as my son, and if you are going where I think you are going, you will be in for a special surprise. Now go with my blessings, son. See you on the other side. Braum said as he left with a smile on his face. Braum. Aragon whispered as he kneeled where he disappeared, except this time with an unyielding flame in his eyes. 895 Chapter 13, Du Weldenvarden. Chapter 13. After Aragon discovered closure in talking to Braum, Naruto was being held up by Arya and Auric. As they held him, they noticed that he was minutely trembling and sweating although he stopped panting. Barzel. What did you do? Was that really Braum? Auric asked in a cautious tone, knowing that the human in front of him was immensely powerful. Arya just looked on with the same question in her eyes. Naruto sighed as he sat back down on the ground. Yes, that was Braum, at least it was his soul. The body he was in was merely temporarily created from my chakra. Although it looks real and is solid, on the inside, it is merely a hollow construct made of energy. Naruto, are you alright? Arya asked in a concerned voice, unsettled at seeing the person that so easily defeated her looking so weak. Naruto hesitated in telling the answer and just settled with merely a yes. Arya frowned, feeling like he was hiding something, but dropped subject knowing that she could not force answers out of him. Aragon walked over to Naruto, knelt in front of him and said, Naruto, I cannot thank you for everything you've done for me. You saved me and my friends, you saved me from the shade, and now you have done something that I can never repay. You allowed me to speak with Brahm for the last time and let me resolve with my past. Is there anything Saphira or I can do for you? Naruto merely smiled a fox smile and patted Aragon's shoulder. Aragon, there is no need for you to kneel or offer to do anything for me. As I said, you remind me of my past self. However, I also know that you won't stop trying to repay your debt. So let me ask, if I asked you to teach me magic, or this ancient language, will you do it? Without almost any hesitation, Aragon responded. Yes, however there will some words I cannot tell you due to them not being mine to tell. Naruto merely nodded in acceptance. Well then, everyone, let's go to sleep. We still have a long journey in front of us. See you in the morning, Giant, Naruto said as he shunshined away. Kit, you alright? That was the first time you used that jutsu. Kurama asked in a worried tone. I'm alright. But it would seem that there is indeed a price to raising a soul from the dead. While it won't kill me like it did Nagato, for a whole day, my regeneration and immortality seems to be almost completely suppressed to the level of a regular human on this continent. While I am still able to access chakra, it seems to have been slightly suppressed, although considering the amount I have, it's not much. My physical strength however seems to remain the same. Overall, I just need to be careful the day I use that jutsu. As long you're alright. Remember, I am no longer your only tenant. You also have Kaguya within you. I understand. Good night Kurama. Naruto said as sleep claimed him. 1 week later, as the group approached Caries, an elven outpost, Aragon reviewed the past few days, speaking to Brahm once again and finding closure, learning elven customs from Arya, teaching Naruto about the ancient language, and Naruto's first success in magic. Flashback. Naruto flung away the stone he had held for the past 2 hours away, hard enough for the stone to eventually be completely buried within the ground. Come on Naruto, just a little longer, from what you told me, this should be easy for you. Just reach into your mind until you reach a barrier, and then break through it. Aragon patiently said, amused by Naruto's childish actions. Easy for you to say. Naruto pouted. Anyways, perform that Stenarisa spell again. Aragon sighed as he again said, Stenarisa. Naruto watched the stone rise once again to eye level. Kid, from what I've seen through your Rinne Sharingan, every single time Aragon does a spell, he actually just barely cracks open the gate of opening, or the first of the 8 gates. Kurama said with an arched eyebrow. You serious? Are you saying whenever anybody does a spell, they're actually slightly opening the first gate, or at least something similar? Naruto asked. While I'm not sure about other spellcasters, Arya and Aragon both crack open the first gate to use their magic. Other spellcasters might just use some kind of equivalent to it or something. I'm not sure without seeing others, but that hardly matters. This could help you break through the first gate of the 8 and hopefully the others, Naruto. Kurama said excitedly, knowing the frustration Naruto has been feeling for the past few weeks trying to open the first gate. After trying for another few hours and almost giving up, Naruto once again observed Aragon doing the spell when he suddenly felt a cracking sound resounding in his head. Naruto immediately assumed the meditation stance he learned on Mount Myaboku and focused himself on the source of the cracking sound. As he did, he came upon a large gate similar to the Rashomon gates Orochimaru used. He observed that the gate was on the verge of opening, but just needed a little more force. As he grabbed a hold of the gates and pulled harder on the gate, the doors of the gate groaned as they slowly opened when suddenly the doors opened wide and flooded Naruto with the chakra that was held back by the gate. Outside, Aragon wondered about the meditation pose Naruto was in when suddenly, he was flat on the ground, panting and sweating while struggling to just breathe. Auric was in the same position as him while Saphira and Arya were brought to their knees while also struggling to breathe, although not as severely as Aragon. Their eyes immediately focused on the center of the pressure, Naruto. They saw as Naruto slowly stood up as the ground around him slowly cracked and then cratered. Naruto, noticing that his chakra from the first gate was slowly crushing the environment, and friends, down from sheer pressure. Naruto immediately closed, if regretfully, the gate and watched the group rise up as the pressure suddenly disappeared. Kurama, was that what I thought it was? Kid, that was merely the chakra that was released from the gate. That gate unlocked the limits of your physical body by unlocking the chakra held back by it. I think I know why you could not open the gates until now. Unlike Lee or Guy, you possess so much more chakra that your body had to create far stronger gates to hold back that chakra from tearing your body apart, at least when your body was still immature. Now however, your body is infinitely more powerful than before, so you can finally withstand the chakra levels from the first gate. The other gates should be easier to open, now that you know how to open them. However, you might need to wear chakra-suppressing seals from now on, just so you won't accidentally kill the people around you. On the good side of things, this will train you and eventually result in an even denser chakra at the end and a body more used to more potent chakra such as Kaguya's. Well, at least there is that. Naruto thought as the others looked at Eragon and Naruto. So, what was that? Arya warily asked. That was Naruto finally opening the barrier in his mind to magic. Eragon replied as he shakily stood up. The others stared wide-eyed, again amazed at the power the blonde held. Flashback end. After another minute of flying, Arya pointed out where to land, which happened to be a small meadow between a river and the surrounding forest. After landing, Arya immediately jumped off of Saphira's back and walked to the center of the clearing and said in the ancient language, "Come forth, my brethren. You have nothing to fear. 'Tis I, Arya of Elesmera. My companions are friends and allies, they mean us no harm." They watched as two elves ran from the trees to embrace Arya while laughing and greeting in clear voices. After the greetings, the two elves introduced themselves as Lifan and Nari while Arya introduced the rest of the group, especially Eragon and Saphira and their intention on going to Elesmera. Both of the elves glanced at Naruto then Arya who then quickly said, "Him too." 3 days later, the group and several other elves were walking amongst the trees that steadily grew thicker and older, with everyone but Naruto and Saphira riding on pure white elven steeds, when he arched a golden eyebrow at a particular tree, blinking as his eyes subtly gained a tinge of saffron. Just how did I almost, I see. Closing his eyes, he reached out with his senses, this time fully concentrating on his surroundings. Whoever he is, he has become so in tune with the forest that despite his high Jonin level reserves, I almost missed his presence. Opening his eyes, he blinked in astonishment at his findings. His energy signature even slightly resembles my own during my sage mode, impressive. I wonder if all elves are like this. Not long after Naruto detected his presence, an ancient elf garbed in flowing robes of pure white with a circlet of gleaming silver resting upon his brow appeared seemingly out of nowhere, as if he were a wraith. Gazing into his eyes, Naruto felt as if Hagoromo was once again standing before him, not because of the elf's power, but rather because of the sheer wisdom that radiated from his old eyes. Gilduri and Elda, breaking off from the front of the group, Arya quickly dismounted from her steed to reverently greet the elf that perpetually guarded the borders of Du Weldenvarden ever since the time of the war against the dragons. As she bowed her head, the newly introduced Gildurian lightly smiled before directing his gaze towards Eragon. Seeing this, Arya gestured towards the hope of Allegezia. "Eragon," Arya murmured before stepping past the elder elf, "show him your palm and your ring." Bearing his right hand, Eragon raised it so that first Brahm's ring and then the Gedway Ignatia was visible. Closing his eyes, Gildurian shifted aside with his arms spread in a gesture of welcome, allowing both Eragon and Saphira to pass further into the leafy trees. Hesitantly, they did so. However, when everyone else had passed except for Naruto, the ancient elf once again stepped in front of him. For a second, the two stared each other, curiosity gleaming in Gildurian's eyes as he attempted to probe Naruto's mind with his own, only to hastily step back when a roar with the fury of 1,000 suns nearly blasted his mind to oblivion. "Peace, Kurama." Naruto comforted his lifelong partner before angrily glaring at Gildurian, his chakra beginning to surge about within his body in response to his rage. Due to his nature, there were very few things in the world that could anger him, but trying to peer into his mind that he shared with Kurama, especially from a supposed ally, was one of them. In fact, it was only because he could sense that the ancient in front of him didn't have malevolent intentions, only curiosity, and that fighting him would instantly cause cracks in the Elf-Varden alliance that he didn't try anything. Instead, clenching his fists, he quietly suppressed his and the Juubi's anger. On the other side, a slight frown marred Gildurian's usually placid expression, obviously disturbed by the earth-shattering amount of power and bloodlust contained within the foreigner's mind. By now, Arya, Eragon, Saphira, and Auric had realized something was wrong and hurriedly retraced their steps back just in time to see Gildurian stumble backwards. Striding forwards, Arya hastily inserted herself between the two. Glancing between the two, she demanded for an answer while tilting her head in respect towards her elder. What happened, Gilderian Elder, Naruto? Relaxing his hands, Naruto eased his stance before shooting an empty smile towards her. Nothing serious happened, other than he tried to pry into my mind. A sharp glint entered his eyes. Is this how you greet your friends and allies? The small frown that marred her face made it clear to everyone that Arya was openly conflicted after finding out the reason behind the disturbance. On one hand was the man who helped save her and the Varden from destruction, and thereby deserved the hospitality of the elves. Yet on the other was Gilderian, the elf guardian who had guarded their borders for over 1,000 years. Had Naruto been any other human, she would have just insisted for him to forfeit his mind for but a moment and continued on. But he wasn't. And before she could make a decision, Gilderian gently brushed her aside while holding an open hand out. Staring at the outstretched hand, Naruto's eyes widened before a genuine grin bloomed on his face, much to the confusion of the others. To think he has even grasped the concept of ninshu. Stepping forward, Naruto mirrored Gilderian's stance, only with a fist instead of an open hand. The corner of his mouth twitched upwards in amusement at Naruto's fist as he too clenched his hand into a fist before bumping it into Naruto's. After being pushed to the side, Arya peered at the two in bemusement as they both closed their eyes, a thin layer of energy beginning to form around the point of contact. 1 second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 minute, 3 minutes passed before Gilderian and Naruto opened their eyes at the same time before stepping back, a glint of respect and awe in both of their gazes. For Naruto, it was the first time he had met someone as ancient as Gilderian who was still amongst the living, while for Gilderian, although he didn't see any of the blonde's memories, he had felt how nature itself seemed to love the human in front of him. Combined with the fact he sensed absolutely no sign of hostility from either of them, only a righteous indignation of having their minds read against their wills despite the overwhelming power and majesty he sensed from the monster fox who had forced him out. Earlier, Gilderian made a decision. With a smile, he gracefully bowed his head and gestured for both Arya and Naruto to continue into the heart of the wood before once again melting back into the forest he protected. Not missing a beat, Naruto quickly passed the area where Gilderian once stood as he made his way to the rest of the group, only casting an amused glance over his shoulder when he saw Arya still frozen to where she was pushed. Hey Arya, why are you still standing there? We should try to get to Elesmera before night falls. Hurry up. Shamelessly, Naruto called out to Arya, completely disregarding the fact their journey was interrupted because of his little incident, before he waved at the group to continue on. The corner of her eye twitched. Chapter 14, Elesmera. Chapter 14. After a quarter of a mile, Naruto's group came upon an empty glade that had faint paths running through it. As Naruto looked around, he subtly sensed the nature energy around him and was amazed at its concentration. Amazing! The ambient natural energy here can rival half of Mount Myaboku's. Perhaps this is where the elves gained their physical and magical superiority of the other races, aside from their rudimentary chakra pathways. Considering Gilderian, perhaps the ambient nature chakra was absorbed into their bodies over the years and gradually strengthened them. Even if they aren't able to free manipulate it, it would give them an unrivaled advantage. As Naruto mused over this theory, he continued to slowly extend his senses over the entire city, sighing in wonder when he felt how in tune the forest and its inhabitants were with each other. However, when he reached a little further, an enormous signature suddenly lit up in front of his. Just what is that enormous nature chakra signature? Before he could further study the huge energy signature, many of the inhabitants of Elesmera exited out of homes shaped from living trees that were shaped into houses. Such natural-looking structures were eye-catching enough, but Naruto and Eragon could not help but stare at the surrounding elves as they revealed themselves, stunned by their almost unnaturally, in comparison, handsome and beautiful looks. Every single elf, whether it be male or female, had unblemished skin, sculpted features and fine hair that rippled down their backs in waves like molten silver, if silver was various colors. Thanks to Jiraiya's training, Naruto was able to tear his gaze away before it became rude, but poor Eragon couldn't help but keep staring. As they made their way through the city and away from the other elves, Eragon finally managed to regain his bearings. Pointing towards the odd tree houses, he asked, "How is that done?" "We sing to the forest in the old tongue and give it our strength to grow in the shape that we desire. All our buildings and tools are made in that manner," Arya replied. Bringing up the rear, Naruto felt if his eyes widened anymore, they might just pop out from his skull. So these elves even have a magic similar to the Mokuton. Oh boy, this is just getting better and better. Maybe they're long-lost relatives of the Senju. He mused as they reached the end of the path. Finally, at the end of the path, they came upon a formed steps woven from a cluster of roots that led up to a door that opened by itself as they approached. Upon entering, Naruto and the rest of the group looked around the hall to see 24 elf lords and ladies, 12 on each side of an ancient throne of knotted roots, upon which a female elf, garbed in royal red and wearing a golden crown rimmed with lustrous gems, regally sat on. By her left side stood a curved rod with a chased crosspiece, upon which perched a brilliant white raven, seemingly asleep. None of the group needed Arya to identify who she was, as only one amongst the many she had informed them of could possibly fit her description. Queen Islanzati, the legendary queen of the elves for the past half-millennium and as beautiful as the morning sunrise and yet as regal as any king. When the group filed in, with Naruto leaning against the wall in the back while Saphira merely stuck her head in, the raven, who at first had its eyes shut, abruptly cocked its head at Aragon before shrieking out, "Werda!" Such an eerie screech caused Aragon to shiver in alarm, but when the raven cast its gaze towards Naruto, nothing came out of its beak. Instead, to everyone's surprise and shock, the eccentric and somewhat insane raven fluttered from its perch to Naruto's shoulder and leaned into his cheek, causing the blonde to look amusedly at the raven before petting its head, which only caused the raven to burrow its snowy crown deeper. Brushing aside her surprise, the queen stood up from her throne. The moment she did, the surrounding elf lords and ladies, Arya, Aragon, and Auric knelt with their heads bowed. Even Saphira from outside, who Naruto knew to be extremely prideful of her race's unsurpassed beauty and strength, also lowered her head towards the elven queen. Only Naruto continued to stand in the background, absently noting how the queen's facial features seemed oddly familiar. Slowly, Queen Islanzati, seemingly not noticing him, merely moved to Arya, placed her hand on Arya's shoulder and said in a rich voice, "Rise." As Arya did so, the queen intensely studied her face as if trying to see into her very being before crying and embracing her. "Oh my daughter, I have wronged you." The group that traveled to Elesmera knelt, and in Naruto's case stood, in shocked silence, trying to digest the fact that Arya was the elven princess. "Oh, this is good, ha ha ha. You always did have a habit of saving princesses, but this is too much. Even in another nation, you still somehow run into the only elven princess there is. Maybe she'll even fall for you too like all the others. Ha ha ha, that perverted toad would be so proud of you." Kurama rumbled with laughter as Naruto just stood there with a tick mark on his face. "Oi, shut it furball, or else I'm coming in there to tie your tails into knots." While Naruto was bantering with his tenant, Queen Islanzati reconciled with her daughter when the white raven on Naruto's shoulder started cackling. And on the door was graven evermore. What now became the family lore? "Let us never do but to adore." Enough of your incessant riddles, Blagden. Swiftly berating the insolent bird, Queen Islanzati turned to Aragon and Saphira and apologized for her behavior. Aragon merely smiled and greeted as Arya taught him. Islanzati drottning. Atra esterni ono theljuan. He had no doubt that he was supposed to speak first. Islanzati's dark eyes widened. Atra du everinya ono varda. Un atra morannerly fa yunin harta honor, replied Aragon, completing the ritual. Naruto waited as the introductions between the elves, dragon rider, and dwarf were going on while stroking the white raven's head as he turned towards Arya, who had come to his side after her mother began to speak with Aragon. "So Arya, you're a princess." "Ha, didn't peg you for one. It is a fact I try to keep hidden. An ambassador of the elves has no need for it." Arya lightly confirmed while absently touching the area above her armored left shoulder. "I see." Glancing at the area she had touched, Naruto realized it be where he had seen an oddly shaped indigo tattoo when she was being escorted to the Varden. He didn't say any more, sensing that there was more to the story and that now was not the best time to satisfy his curiosity. Having greeted the others, Queen Islanzati finally turned towards Naruto and with a frown, confusion and wariness clear in her eyes. At that instant, the attention of the entire hall fell upon his shoulders. "You must forgive my discourtesy, Naruto Uzumaki. To you, who has played a large role in both aiding my daughter," she paused, savoring the word she hadn't had the opportunity to say for over half a century, "and protecting the Varden from certain destruction, I extend my most heartfelt gratitude." As she slightly tilting her head down towards him, Naruto heard a quick, near non-existent, gasp of air beside him before it disappeared. Peering from the corner of his eyes, all he saw was Arya, as beautiful and impassive as always. But years of being a shinobi and Hokage of such shinobi had granted him a keen eye. Beneath that placid lake of emerald was an undercurrent of shock and at her mother's action. She knew how proud she could be, and it touched her heart to know Islanzadi had bowed her proud head for her. Upon seeing this, the corner of Naruto's mouth quirked up before he too mirrored Eragon's actions. Touching his own lips, he too inclined his head before speaking softly. Islanzadi drottning, Atra Esterni Ono Theljuan. Surprise radiated from the elven queen. While it was not unusual, even expected, for Eragon to know and speak the traditional greetings of the elves, she didn't expect for someone like Naruto to also do so. And for him to speak the ancient language so well. He even spoke the words better than Eragon, who had no doubt practiced them many, many times. The only flaw she could detect was a slight and unique accent she had never heard before intertwined within his words. Curiously gazing at Naruto, she completed her part of the greeting. Atra du Everinya Ono Varda. Un Atra Moranerly Fi Yunin Harda Honor, he finished. The hushed whispers that had once swept the room while their queen spoke with Eragon and Arya once again gained steam, as they glanced at the foreigner who also projected an aura of authority like their queen, Islanzadi. With his emotion sensor, the primary emotion Naruto felt from most, if not all the elves, was caution and mild curiosity. Despite all of his seals, the sensitive immortals could no doubt sense the sheer power hiding within his body. Not far from him, he could also feel Arya's shock, no doubt due to how badly he spoke the words just yesterday during practice. Perhaps she even thought he was simply pretending to butcher the greeting. That wasn't true. He indeed was terrible at the language. All he could say was, "All hail the shadow clones." With a much friendlier tone, Queen Islanzadi instinctively continued to speak in the ancient language, only pausing when she noticed the vacant look in Naruto's eyes, realizing that despite his near-perfect enunciation he hadn't understood a word she said. An awkward silence pervaded the room before Naruto sheepishly chuckled while rubbing the back of his head. "Ha ha ha, my apologies Queen Islanzadi, but my understanding of the ancient language is limited to your greeting as well as a few spells. If you don't believe me," said Naruto before pointing his thumb towards the elf beside him, "you can just ask Arya." Turning towards Arya, Islanzadi switched back to "Is this true, my daughter? Surely someone who can speak the ancient language so fluently and well cannot have such a shallow understanding as he says." Contrary to her expectations, Arya immediately confirmed the blonde's words. "Yes, other than a few minor spells, Naruto is a complete beginner to our language. In fact, just yesterday, his pronunciation was far worse than Eragon's." More whispers rushed through the room at her words. Had it been an elf in question, nobody would have found it unusual. But for someone just beginning to learn their language, it was impressive to say the least. Realizing they were getting off topic, Islanzadi quickly diverted the conversation back on course. "While I thank you for saving my daughter and the resistance, I have to wonder, who are you, stranger? Other than your name, appearance and a cursory list of your powers, my daughter has not reported anything else. For centuries, we elves have walked the earth and, although we have isolated ourselves from the matters of mortals, your name does not have roots in any race we know of." While Queen Islanzadi had not personally seen or even heard from her daughter, other than a meager handful of moments, for the past half-century, she knew two things of her personality. One, that Arya would never rest until she at least knew the general background of an anomaly as powerful as Naruto, especially when said anomaly saved her life. And two, no matter the differences between them, she was loyal to her kind to a fault and would never hide information of a potential threat. So either Arya truly found the man in front of her as no threat, or she was forced into silence. And if it was the latter? Islanzadi's eyes narrowed as suspicion, so easy to succumb to these days, began to cloud her earlier gratitude. Soon, the tension in the air thickened to the point where Naruto swore he could cut through it with a kunai. Fortunately, her question was not one he was particularly secretive about. It's not as if anyone in Alagizia was capable breaking through the barrier surrounding the elemental nations. Before relaying the same answer he told leaders of the Varden, Naruto shot a small, but grateful look and nod to his left, slightly surprised that Arya hadn't mentioned his origins. From what Eragon had taught him about the ancient language, any serious oath Arya, or any elf in Alagizia, made would be done in that language due to its binding properties. Yet, for her to keep her word despite her status of ambassador and only swearing in the common language, it spoke volumes of her character. Upon hearing the blonde's words and then his theory of the elves' origins, disbelief could be seen in Queen Islanzadi's and her counsel's eyes as she slowly strode back to her throne. Once again regaining her seat, a small frown appeared, not entirely believing him as was her nature. While she contemplated his words, a male elven lord with hair black as night steadily stood up. Tilting his head down, Naruto Finiral, like my queen, I Dathid, Lord of Silphrim, want to thank you for saving our princess, Arya Svitkona. But I must ask, dark hazel orbs flashed, why should we trust you when you did not let Gildry and Elda into your mind? On the side, Arya also looked curiously at Naruto. Despite passing through the borders of the elven forest for decades, never had she seen the ancient elder deign to touch anyone, never mind touch fists with a human for over a minute. However, she sighed in disappointment at Naruto's cryptic answer. There are other ways to communicate than mere words and minds, Lord Dathiter. And I can assure you, if you ask Gildry and San, he will speak on behalf of me. Staring into the elven lord's discerning gaze, the corner of Naruto's eyes twitched when he felt the lightest of presences skirt along the perimeter of his mind. This time, however, he made sure to shroud Kurama's presence and increase his mental defenses as he would against a Yamanaka. The only thing Dathiter could feel from the stranger before him was an impenetrable wall of some sort of energy, but most of all the unshakable conviction and confidence emanating behind that barrier. And while slightly dissatisfied he couldn't further observe the fascinating blonde's mind, he knew it would be rude and foolish of him to do so, if Gilderian himself dared do so. Shutting his dark eyes, Dathiter mirrored his queen as he gracefully sat down. No need. While I am obviously not as old as Gilderian Elda, we are friends. Nothing could have forced their way into our home with him guarding its borders, only death could. And should such a thing have happened, the entire Du Weldenvarden would have wept for our loss. Dusting away the non-existent dust from her magnificent robes, Islanzadi strode towards her daughter's side and declared, Naruto Finiral has convinced me of his benign intentions and will thus may stay here in Elesmera. She glanced about the room before settling down on Naruto and Arya. It would be a shame for someone so gifted in the ancient language to come to an end here. And so I have decided, my daughter shall see to your instruction of the words and its intricacies. Now, our guests wait tired on their feet, and we have spoken of evil things for far too long. I will not have this occasion marred by lingering on past injuries. And then as she suddenly brightly smiled continued, my daughter has returned, a dragon and her rider have appeared, and I will see us celebrate in the proper fashion. Blagden. She indicated for the white raven to come back, which he did although with extreme reluctance that was visible to all. Now what are ya? Naruto asked. That is an indication of the incoming festivities for the return of her daughter, and the return of the dragon riders, as well as the return of our distant brethren. Arya responded. Sounds like fun. Wonder if they have ramen. Naruto said as they watched, with Auric, Aragon, and Saphira. A team of elves prepare the feast from setting up the table and preparing the food. Chapter 15, Another Dragon Rider. Chapter 15. As it turned out, they did not have ramen, or noodles, or even any meat, which resulted in Naruto crying many anime tears during that feast. Naruto, stop that weird crying. When you cry, you are insulting the food as well as the elves that have made it. Arya said. But Arya, they don't have meat or even ramen, the food of the gods. Naruto exclaimed. What is ramen anyways? It doesn't sound that appetizing anyways. Aragon said before gulping when he saw a sudden gleam going through Naruto's eyes. You not knowing what ramen is one thing. But insulting it? I see I will have to re-educate you. Now let's see, where to begin. First, ramen is Kami's gift to all living things. It was brought down from the heavens to light the way. Naruto started to preach, after. He clapped his hands tightly onto Aragon's shoulder so that he could not run away. 1 hour later, everybody at the feast had their eyes rolled to the back of their heads as Naruto kept a constant stream of brainwashing phrases. And when ramen first entered the world, the masses cried out in joy. Naruto said as Saphira finally roared out with her mind. Enough. Stop torturing my rider with your brainwashing. If you want to convince somebody, prove it. Oh, there was that route, but I only have a limited amount, even if it is in the hundreds of thousands. But with no sacrifice, there can be no victory. Saphira. You shall be the first to be converted. Now taste the food of the gods. Naruto declared as he unsealed and threw a steaming bowl of Ichiraku's ramen into Saphira's maw, the recipe I am finally told him as her last present on her deathbed. As Saphira closed her jaws in surprise, she suddenly tasted the salty and porky goodness that featured the perfect blend of crunchiness from the al dente noodles, the slightly chewiness of the pork that exploded with flavor, the squishiness of the fish cake, and finally the broth that embodied the best of them all. Her eyes bulging as they turned from sapphire blue to red, she quickly turned to her rider as she panted, "Forgive me, I was wrong. Aragon, you must try this." The elves looked in horror at the interaction between the revered dragon and the human blonde before Queen Islanzati announced that the feast was over. She then said to the dragon rider and dragon, "It is late, I am tired, and I would return to my bower. Accompany me, Saphira and Aragon, and I will show you where you may sleep tonight." As the queen led the group away from the festivities, Naruto asked, "So where are the rest of us going to sleep? Although I could just grow a house here. In fact, I think I will do just that. Even with your powers, not even you could create life. Not even us elves that are so in tune with nature would be able to create life. We only help shape the life that is already there." Queen Islanzati started until she stared wide-eyed as Naruto made a hand seal and said, "Mokutan, Shichukan no Jutsu." Queen Islanzati stood there in shocked silence before regaining her bearings and said, "We will meet in the morning where Aragon will continue his training while you shall begin yours with Arya." "Well, I guess see you in the morning, Arya," Naruto said as he disappeared into his newly created house. Next morning, the entire group walked to the edge of Elesmera where they met Queen Islanzati. Once they gathered, Queen Islanzati said in a serious voice, "Before we go any farther, the four of you must swear in the ancient language that you will never speak to outsiders of what you are about to see, not without permission from me, my daughter, or whoever may succeed us to the throne." Naruto waited as the Aragon, Saphira, and Auric at first tried to find fault with the command, but eventually could not the elf queen's logic and caution. After doing so, Queen Islanzati turned to the blonde. "I know that I cannot force you, but I please, do not reveal this to anyone. Promise me you won't." Naruto looked into Queen Islanzati's eyes and saw no deception within her gaze. "While I will not swear in the ancient language, I will promise you that I will not reveal what I will see to anyone unless you or Arya tells me to. And I never break my promises." Satisfied with the answer, Queen Islanzati nodded and led the group towards a cliff 1,000 feet tall and that stretched for miles. As Naruto drew in a small amount of nature chakra, he suddenly sensed a similar presence to Aragon and Saphira, only far stronger. "Ho, to think that the elves have hidden such a secret from the rest of their world. How interesting. But how come one of the presences seems broken?" Just as Naruto finished his thought, several heavy thuds resounded through the air and ground. Aragon plugged his ears while Saphira raised a wing towards hers. As they did, they witnessed a giant gold dragon emerge from on top of the cliff with a rider on its back. Several moments passed as Aragon and Saphira fell to their knees with a thud in reverence and relief, knowing that they were not the last of their kind and that there was finally someone to guide them. As the self-introduced elf, Oromiz, flew to the ground and greeted Aragon, Queen Islanzati heatedly said to the elven rider, "You knew. You knew of Aragon's existence and yet you did not tell me. Why have you betrayed me, Shurtuggle? I could have sent riders and scouts to bring them and Arya back home to me. I could have done so much more." Oromiz listened to his queen's outburst and merely sighed, "You have betrayed yourself, Islanzati Drottning. If you had performed your duties instead of withdrawing from the world out of depression, you would have noticed Aragon and Arya far sooner, even before the Battle of Farthen-Dur. You have only yourself to blame. And besides, I knew that nothing would happen to them, especially when someone as powerful as the man beside you was with them and protecting them the entire time." Naruto stood to the side as he listened to the conversation between his group and the ancient dragon rider. As Auric started asking where the elven rider was this entire time, Naruto intervened. "Auric, from what I sense, both Oromiz's and his dragon's bodies are somehow broken. While for the dragon, it is only a physical condition, for Oromiz, his body is currently, and only barely, held together by a multitude of seals, or spells as you know it as. Even if he were to fight, he would only be a burden, at most an unstable weapon that could break at any time during the battle. And if he died before the next rider was chosen, then all knowledge that had to be passed down would have been lost forever to the world. Naruto paused as Oric digested this new information while Oromiz looked slightly ashamed that he could have done more for the Varden or for the elves. Oromiz. As I said before, your body is broken, your magic unstable, and your dragon crippled. Currently, you are of no use other than being a sensei to Aragon here, although I am sure that you are a great one. However, if you and your dragon could be healed, what would you do? Naruto questioned, wanting to know the answer while looking into the other rider's eyes. Oromiz thought for a moment before answering with clear eyes. If my partner and I could ever be healed, we would still teach everything to Aragon, holding nothing back, and ride out for the sake of liberating Alagizia from Galbatorix's rule. Naruto looked into his eyes, looking for any hint of insincerity and trickery. Finding none, he said to everyone, swear in your ancient language to never reveal what will happen here unless I, and only I, allow it. I will heal you Oromiz, but never forget this debt and repay it by helping Aragon here and fighting alongside him. Everyone looked at each other before nodding and swearing in the ancient language. Once they did so, Naruto slowly walked up to the rider and his dragon. What is your dragon's name? Before Oromiz could answer, a rumble echoed in Naruto's mind as a majestic voice said, Glader is what you may call me, hatchling. Should you show the slightest intention of harming my rider or me, I will tear you to shreds. Naruto merely nodded, discarding the threat as there was no ill intention behind it. As he did so, he placed his right hand that had an outline of a sun on top of Glader's stump. Naruto sighed as he pumped chakra into his right palm and through the sun outline. As he did so, the crippled leg started glowing, blinding everyone with a golden light. As the light faded, everyone simply stared in wonder as what was once empty space was once again filled with a golden muscular leg covered in near impenetrable scales. Glader lifted up his leg in wonder, feeling no problems or weaknesses with the leg. It was as if his leg was always there, and was merely missing from sight. Gently tapping his foot against ground, the golden dragon proceeded to progressively stomp harder and harder until a crater was formed. Oromiz trembled with excitement and joy as the air and his mental link between them flooded with the dragon's roars of exultation and happiness. He then looked at Naruto, trembling at the thought that he might just be healed after all this time and not have to endure the crippling pains that came and went. Now, Oromiz, I believe it is your turn. Naruto said as his palm lit up with a green glow. Stay still, and let me see what exactly is wrong with you. Oromiz complied with the order and waited as Naruto swept his hand from head to toe. As he did so, he saw Naruto's eyes light up with comprehension. Do you understand what is wrong with me? All of the best healers of Elesmera could not find anything wrong with me. Not even I could find anything wrong. Well, there is both good and bad news. The bad news is that what I am about to do will hurt, and far more than you have ever known. It will be as your body and mind are trying to tear themselves apart. The good news is that I know what is wrong. It also confirms my suspicions that you elves did indeed come from where I came from, the elemental nations. The chakra pathways between your 8 gates have been completely severed. Plus, your first gate that is located in the mind and is the source of your magic has been almost completely mangled. I'm guessing that any magic that you have done is merely because your gate has not been completely destroyed. Naruto diagnosed. Oromiz stood still, absorbing the information that Naruto said. But you said you could still heal me, correct? I will bear any amount of pain if that is what it takes. Glader will also help me shoulder the pain. Oromiz said with a firm tone while Glader too nodded at his words. So be it. Now, try not to scream. Naruto said as he once again pumped chakra into his palm. The clearing was lit up with Oromiz's screams and Glader's roars of pain as his chakra pathways were being rapidly mended and the connection between his first gate and the rest of his body were being reconnected. His pathways were then rapidly expanded to what they should have been by the sheer amount of chakra Naruto was pumping while being destroyed from the overexpansion and then rehealed by his chakra. The process went on for an hour until Naruto finally dropped his palm away from the elven rider as said rider laid on the ground with his dragon, both panting and sweating from the pain. Oromiz shakily stood up and analyzed his body, hoping beyond hope that he was finally healed. When he felt nothing wrong, he muttered, Sten Arisa. Boulders started floating around him and as he held them there for a long time and after feeling no pain, he trembled while saying, I am healed, I am really healed. Thank you Naruto, you have given Glader and I a light called hope and I will repay this by making Aragon as strong as he can be. Queen Islanzati trembled, seeing their secret and pride fully healed, and all because of the blonde that her daughter was interested in. All that she could think of as she watched the celebration that spread amongst the group was, Naruto, just what are you and what will you do with Allegezia? Chapter 16, Manoa Tree. Chapter 16. The day that Naruto healed both Oromiz and Glader passed quickly. Aragon and Saphira flew away with the elder dragon rider pair to begin their training immediately while the rest of the group returned to Elesmera, where Queen Islanzadi once again threw another feast at the recovery of their own dragon rider. The day after the feast, Naruto went to Arya for his magic training after sensing out where she was. Walking through the city, Naruto admired the way these elves lived together with nature. It reminded him of his time at Mount Myaboku where he lived with toads. But still, what exactly is that enormous nature chakra signature? I will have to ask Arya about this when we meet. Kit. I'm glad that you are finally getting over that Hyuga after all these years. I know that you are currently only friends, but she is your best shot at happiness. And do not worry, remember your mate's last words. Naruto smiled sadly as he remembered how shocked he was at his Hinata's last words. Flashback. An older-looking Naruto sat beside and held the hand of an aged yet still beautiful Hinata that laid in bed with her eyes closed. Naruto knew that his Hinata would not last the night and that this would be the last time he would ever see her alive. Just then, Hinata opened her eyes and looked over to Naruto. Naruto-kun, you do not need to hide yourself behind Tsunade-sama's henge to appear older than you really are, you know. Hinata said while smiling, borrowing one of Naruto's signature verbal tics. Naruto sat there, startled that Hinata knew about the henge that he had Sakura set up for him. He sighed as he dropped the henge to instantly look as young as he did when he had married Hinata. How long? Naruto asked, knowing that he did not need to clarify anything. Naruto-kun, while you may have been able to fool even Sasuke's eyes, remember that I still have my Byakugan and can see that your chakra pathways have remained undiminished even after all these years. It was simple to deduce that you wore a henge that hid your true appearance so that you would not make me bad about it. Hinata said gently as Naruto sat there. Naruto-kun, I know that I will not live beyond tonight and I have something to tell you. Despite you saying that I should not feel this way, I still feel guilty that I was not able to bear you any children and it is one of my greatest regrets for not being able to do so. Naruto-kun, from what I have seen, you will still live for a great many years and I do not want to become a barrier to your happiness. So know that should you feel love again, then if not for yourself then for me, do not make me the reason for not pursuing it. Promise me Naruto-kun, promise me. Hinata begged, knowing that if he promised her this, she could pass on without any regrets, since after all, her husband has never broken a promise. Feeling his wife's life fade, Naruto said with as bright of a smile as he could, Hinata, I promise. I promise that I will not use you as an excuse to not love, but I also promise that no matter what, you will always be my first wife. Know this as you move on to the pure world. Hinata merely smiled, looked at her beloved's face one last time as if trying to burn the memory even until the afterlife, and closed her pale lavender eyes. Naruto-kun, I love you. Naruto spent the rest of that night crying over her body, his sorrow washing over the rest of Konoha. Flashback end. TCH, she's still only a friend. But thank you Kurama. Despite our rough beginning, I consider you my closest and the best friend in my life. Alright kid, enough of this mushy stuff, I'm about to vomit a Bijudama in your mindscape, and that won't be pretty. Now, get over to your future mate and start learning that magic. Kurama snickered as Naruto pouted. Naruto followed Arya's energy signature and found himself in front of the hall where they met the elf lords and queen. Now that he thought about it, it did make sense for the princess to live in the castle. Noticing that Arya was not coming out, Naruto inhaled deeply and shouted, "Why oh Arya, come out and train me." The shout resounded throughout the entire city with many of the elves looking dumbfounded in the blonde's direction. In a flash, a black blur with a lining of green flashed out of the doors, grabbed the blonde's ear and disappeared into the distance. When Arya stopped, she dropped Naruto in the middle of a clearing, pulled out her sword and immediately swung it in his direction. Naruto dodged until Arya had stopped, panting as the clearing around them turned from a serene and beautiful area into a place full of slash marks and burn marks from fired spells. Naruto! Just stand still and let me hit you. Arya commanded the blonde, desperate to regain some of her honor back after being embarrassed by him. Heck no, you're trying to kill me with that sword and magic. I only shouted at you so that we could begin my magic training. Although I have a question that I must ask. Naruto retorted. Arya stopped trying to discipline the blonde and stood there before nodding and waiting for Naruto to ask his question. Arya, what is that massive nature chakra just a little bit away from Elesmera? It feels like a tree, but with another elven chakra signature within it. Just what is it? Naruto asked. Arya arched an eyebrow at the blonde, fascinated that he was able to sense something off with the tree. Arya then told Naruto the story behind the Manoa tree, about how a middle-aged elf maiden named Linnea found love with a young man that happened to meet her. The two were happy until the man desired a woman closer to his age and eventually wooed another, younger elf maiden and was for a time, happy with her. That was until Linnea discovered her lover's cheating and in a rage killed both the man and his lover. Overcome with shame, Linnea sang herself into a tree, abandoning her race, and has been there ever since. Naruto listened with astonishment at the elf's ability to sing herself into a tree and fuse with it. It reminded him of the twins of the Sound Four, Sakan and Yukon, who were able to fuse with each other and other people due to their bloodline. But as he listened to the rest of the story, he came to pity the elf maiden. He found it wrong that Linnea felt compelled to abandon her race merely because her own lover was the one that cheated on her. Arya, could you take me to the Manoa tree? When I sensed it, I felt a deep regret, shame, and rage from the tree, and now knowing the story, I feel like I can at least calm those feelings. We can start the magic training tomorrow. Also, I have a present for you that I will give you tomorrow as well. Arya wondered what present he was talking about but just nodded and led him to a giant tree that was thicker than 100 of the smaller trees of the forest. As Naruto walked up to the tree, he grew more amazed at the sheer power in the tree. Kami, this Manoa tree feels about as powerful as Shikaku. Naruto thought as he placed his palm on the tree while entering Sage Mode Level 2, making circular marks appear on his face while a circular mark that resembled the Rinnegan appeared in the middle of his forehead. Instantly a wave of nature chakra spread throughout the forest, turning all heads in the direction of the source. When they noticed where the source was, they immediately hurried towards it, worried that harm would befall the Manoa tree. Naruto ignored everything that was happening outside and instead concentrated in making contact with the spirit of the tree. Soon after he felt the mindscape of another and immediately entered it. As he entered it, it felt more than saw the memories of Linnea from when she fell in love with the man, to the betrayal she felt, and then finally the 1,000 years she spent in the tree, witnessing the growth and death of the plants and animals that inhabited the area around her. After witnessing the memories, he finally saw an elfin silhouette with its back towards him while knee-deep in water within a maze-like sewer not unlike his own before he was able to control his very mindscape. As he approached the elf from behind, a sudden force stopped him. Looking below him, he saw countless tree roots that bound his feet, preventing him proceeding forwards. Who are you to come into my mind? Linnea, the Manoa tree asked as outside, roots started spreading over Naruto's body. My name is Naruto and I have come after hearing your story and sensing the regret, shame and rage that you carried in your aura. I see, but I ask, why have you come? Why should I not just kill you now for trespassing into my mind? Linnea said as she started constricting the blonde. Because first, Naruto began before shattering the roots from his legs in the mindscape and displaying his power. You cannot bind or hurt me for I am beyond even you. And second, I am a sage and I wish to help you. I can purify the nature chakra through me before flowing it back towards you, effectively taking in your negative feelings which could possibly have you stop hating yourself. Linnea cautiously retreated, feeling more than enough power to end her existence, and far more power than she had felt from any living being within the forest or even that upstart of a human, Galbatorix. Nobody would simply help me for nothing. What do you want in return? Is it too much to think that I am not doing this to gain anything? When I heard your story, I found myself pitying you and felt that that man you fell in love with did not deserve your feelings. But know this, I would not have decided to help you if that was it. No, I want to help you because I feel that you should not feel hatred towards yourself. You have done nothing wrong. With you being an elf, a race that mostly hides their deepest feelings, to be betrayed by your lover must have felt as if your very world collapsed. And when you finally noticed what you had done, you must have thought you had done something wrong for such a betrayal and thus wanted to actually wash away your shame, by hiding away from the rest of the world. You are someone that does not deserve the torture that you have imposed on yourself for many years. Well, that's basically why I want to help you, you know. Naruto said with a sheepish smile while scratching the back of his head. Linnea simply looked at the blonde, trying to discern any hint of trickery or malicious intent. But instead, she was confronted by a near-pure aura that hid nothing and only showed his desire to help her. Suddenly, she felt a feeling she hadn't felt in a long time. Warmth. This was the first time she felt genuine warmth in over 1,000 years. As she contemplated on the feeling, she slowly walked towards the blonde. Naruto Namike Uzumaki, you intrigue me. For one not an elf, you have shown far more compassion than even my little brothers and sisters have shown me over the years. I accept your proposal. However, I must do something in return. Linnea raised her hand as she saw the blonde begin to protest. Let me finish. It is our pride to never owe another, otherwise such a debt might eat us away from the inside. This is all the more true with me, now that I have fused with the Manoa tree. I can feel that your current desire, other than helping me, is to protect your precious ones, especially Aragon and Arya, and free this land from Galbatorix. As such, should Aragon, Arya, or Islanzati ever be at the edge of death, I will send the energy needed to fixate their souls to their body, long enough for their bodies to be healed enough such that they will not need me. However, I must warn you, I can also feel that the sword that this Aragon currently holds does not fit him. Rather, the sword feels as if it is rejecting him and will let him down when he needs it most. As such, should he ever ask of it from me, I will help him should he pass my test, with the reward being the bright steel underneath my roots. However, as for you, I give you my blessing. As Linnea said her last sentence, she leaned up and kissed Naruto on his forehead. I can see that you already have a profound grasp on nature itself and can control and even create trees. However, my blessing will allow you to control far more than just trees. You will be able to control and manipulate all plant life as well as further your control over trees to the point as if they were your very limbs. Now go, hero of the 4th Shinobi War, and fulfill your promise. Linnea said as she gently pushed Naruto out of her mind. That's it for part 2. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.